every year.
There's a total disconnect now between the ruling group and the masses.
I hate psychology.
Clear out.
They're the same worm-like characters.
Analysts.
Fuck you with your stupid argument.
They should not bother us.
Democracy. All of this just works.
Vote for the generations who are coming.
Fully dynamic game engine.
A millennial video essayist.
Always support strength,
Constant craving.
and identity.
I haven't yearned.
They are a disease of our time.
Clear them out. You're voting for what your grandfather and father fought for.
I sit and yearn.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Longhouse, the weekly show for the sensible centrist. We're doing this on an off day. Something came up in real life for me, so I had to push this ahead one day. So we're streaming on a Wednesday instead of our regular Thursday slot. Hopefully you're able to join us here live, and if not, you are probably enjoying the recording of this tomorrow or at a later point. I've called this episode News Roundup. I guess this big story, of course, this week that we had a bit of a difficult time ignoring has been the UK situation, the riots and the response from the Starmer government. So we're going to be looking into that. Bloody Path has also collected some other noticings. He's still not done. After his 3-week vacation, the rant is still not over, and we're going to be, well, exploring what's the meme in the comments these days. We're going to explain why this is all Russia's fault.
Yeah, hello everybody. So I got myself a new microphone. I hope that's for everybody's listening pleasure. As you said, IRL stuff tends to get in the way of things. So there are, like you said, the news roundup. I wanted to take a look at the UK riot situation a bit on, not just on the immediate news and on the Starmer, or his new nickname, Tutti or Keir's handling of the events, but also on some of the takes that have happened kind of inside of the online right spheres, and the kind of maybe some parts of this show is going to be like a gossip show. You know, I assume there's actually a quite lucrative niche in just sitting and talking about like people who are BFFs who are breaking up, and sort of people who get into arguments. It's not a drama show, but it's been an interesting set of events that I feel like it serves to fracture the certain coalitions that have been built up. One of them being the Christian-Muslim alliance, which is going to be like one of the things that I want to take a look at. I mean, the world is quite cuckoo. I'm just going to share a tab.
You sent me, you made a video that you sent me earlier this week. Do you want me to play it before we go into the
No,
Christian?
I actually don't. I mean, like you said, I was going to talk about Russia in this episode, among other topics. But I mean, I noticed like in the comments that people are sort of upset with the Russia stuff. So I thought I would just put a warning on. So just kind of, okay, if you don't want to hear about Russia related stuff, then you could just skip the episode or something like that. But I kind of realized, just looking a little bit closer. I mean, am I sharing now or not?
You're sharing a screen, but it seems to be just like your
I need to
browser.
I'm just going to be jumping around with various links this time. The
Okay.
PowerPoint won't work since we might have to look at videos. So yeah, just pull it up and we can explore some things. So yeah, as the usual thing here, if we look at our previous Longhouse, I had to get myself like a YouTube membership. Seems like there's some issues with the tab itself. I'm going to try to share again.
All right.
Here.
Nordanon says, thanks for not streaming on my birthday tomorrow. Very considerate of you. Well, happy birthday, Nordanon. I hope you have a good time.
Yeah, well, yeah, happy birthday tomorrow, at least, when that happens. So
For your
are you sharing
86,
the sharing the screen again?
Yes, I'll just confirm that is Werner Herzog on Psychologists in the intro. Here we go. This is from our last week's
Yeah, this is
episode,
this is from our last stream here. So I just wanted to set the tone immediately. We have an fellow American man here, Dan Raider 482, who commented Russia, 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 Russia. There you go. I've saved you an hour of a show, right? But of course, we didn't even talk that much about Russia.
No,
in the
I was going to
previous
say
show,
my initial thought when I saw that specific comment was, I think this is the least Russia episode we've done in a while.
Yeah, but of course he didn't actually see the episode at all. I have made the mistake of looking at comments like this and thinking that like this is a sincere person, right? I mean, if you have this feature on YouTube that if you can click on the face, like on the avatar, and you can see some of the, like a summary of some of the few comments on the channel, and it's all sort of like complaining about Russian content, right? So if you look at the profile of Dan Raider here, not much here. If we look at the playlists, there's a list of favorite here, so it sort of looks normal. We got our American boy here he's got some anime stuff. He likes JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, nothing unusual, until we scroll a little bit down here. Oh, number 86. So it's Russian DIY video. How to fix your toilet for Russians. And it's got like how to cook borscht and this kind of like Russia specific stuff. So yeah, Ivan, I see you, Ivan. I know you're there.
So this is just a specific takedown of this one commenter that.
No, this is basically just showing that we have Russian bots on the Longhouse, just like with the tiny audience that we have. It's like maybe like 1,000 views per video is sort of enough to warrant these fucking troll accounts to show up on our videos, right? And just to sit and complain. And I've sort of made the mistake of looking at it and sort of thinking that this is organic feedback, right? It's like actual people who genuinely sort of, oh, well, I didn't want to hear about this. But when you're getting stuff like this, it's very typical that they'll complain, oh, it's just all Russia stuff, and they're not actually responding to the stuff in the video. It's there to sort of people who look at the comments before they look at the video, right? So they'll just look at those comments and they'll just, okay, I don't want to watch this. So they'll just click off, like if there's some kind of MAGA type or something like this. So it's just going to be like MSN stuff. So I'll just jump. And that's kind of, in my view, I think that's the purpose of making these comments, because I'm seeing this on, we're going to look at some other cases here, especially with some of the disinfo that came out relating to like the UK riots. But it's a very typical thing where they just show up on videos and just put like, it's Russia's fault again, blah, blah, blah. It's, Russia. And then they never respond to the actual content or the allegations in the video. It's just like this kind of, I'm fed up with this stuff. And if
again,
with
the video
some of
in
them,
question,
right?
I don't think it had anything to do with Russia.
Very little. I mean, it did.
I think it was mentioned at some point.
One point, but it's very hard, I think, to sit and comment on European affairs without Russia coming up at some point, right? There's just a lot of stuff going on, and it's very few things that they're not involved in on some level, or you can't trace back to it.
Because Nordan says, have you considered that it's just a Russian guy who's gotten offended?
Nope. I honestly don't think so, because they're just, okay, like, why is he here? Why is he only complaining about this kind of Russia stuff on our videos? Why is he, for example, posting Russia on a video that doesn't have anything to do with Russia? Like, it's a very good question, because this is very typical Russian bot behavior. And I don't mean bot in the sense that it's automated. I mean in the sense that they're trolls, in the sense that they have some kind of script that they're following. And they're trying to sort of bury info, and they're trying to bury content that's critical of Russia. So I'll show you some other examples of this later. But yeah, the first thing that I wanted to look at is something that's been floating around on Twitter. It's a recruitment ad for the Russian army. See here, and we can just watch it if you're getting sound through. It's slow.
I can play it if not.
Yeah, I mean, do you have the link? So I can, of course.
I have the link. I can bring it up.
You try to do it. I don't know why my internet is so slow this time.
Sure.
Maybe if you're getting it up faster, then we can show it from your user.
I mean, yeah, It's hard to single out one person like that. People in the chat are a bit suspicious. But there has been an uptick in some of the comments that you don't see, which I get for review as well, that are more low quality. Let's put it like that. When Ludwig started talking about Russia, like I know that it's been a lot on his mind lately, and he's like bringing it up a lot, but that's mostly because he's
For
in
the, I mean,
uncharted
just
territory here.
for the people who are skeptical of this stuff, just pretend that it's Jews, okay? Then you don't need any evidence. Yeah, it's an Israeli psyop guy. Then you just believe me instantly. So
Here we go.
it's totally organic from a country where it's like only 5% of people speak English. That they just keep showing up on these anti-Russia YouTube videos complaining. But here we have Elijah Schaefer with and he's posting, it's from the Lord Bebo. That's one of these Russian narrative accounts on Twitter. And he's saying their new Russian recruitment focuses on Christians and Muslims uniting to fight Zionist global homo regime and in Ukraine. And just play the video.
All right. I'm going to play it. Let's hope the audio is not too loud.
Отче наш, иже еси на небесех, да светится имя Твое, да приидет царствие Твое, да будет воля Твоя, как на небесе и на земле. Хлеб наш насущный дашь к нам днесь.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم.
That sorry, just I have to interrupt for a moment. That prayer there has a very like now watch this drive energy. Like he prays and then he like shoots some guy in the head.
It's a well-made recruitment ad, no doubt. It's just I think a lot of the content hits people wrong, especially for the people who have specific ideas about what exactly it means to fight the global homo.
Sure.
Спаси, Господи, люди Твои, и благослови Твои, победы православных христиан на сопротивных Мухаммад Расулуллах, саллаллаху алейхи вассалям.
Well, there you go. I think that's it's just
Okay. Now, if you zoom back a little bit to that part where they're very quickly looping over the names there. You can see they say we are Jews and we are Koreans in there. Yeah, there you go. See, Belarusians.
There was Jews, Armenians, Chechens, Tatars. Yeah, I saw Koreans in there as well.
Koreans there as well. I mean, it's very interesting because Andrew Tate was sharing this, and he tried to cope with like, oh, notice what ethnicity is not actually in here. The based Jewish. Yes, the trailer for Dune 3. It actually does look like it. It's perfect. I mean, it's very well done.
It's a good ad. I'll give it that. Like, it's very well made. My point is
that the reactions for people like Andrew Tate, he was trying to sell in this stuff with the Christian Muslim alliance against the Zionists, right? He apparently hadn't even watched through the whole video. It was just kind of, okay, we just see the Christians and Muslims doing the prayers and stuff, and they're supposedly like fighting Zionists, even though they include Jews in there and Koreans. I mean, for those of you not in the know, Putin visited North Korea. I think that's something we covered on the previous stream, and a part of that was that he gets some recruits, like from the North Koreans, quote unquote, special troops or whatever, to join in, like the people who are doing the brick breaking and these kind of like karate moves. You can find the display videos. But could you share the Twitter thread again, because there's some interesting interactions in there that I'd like to highlight.
Sure. The thread on the video. Yeah.
Yes. Among Elijah Schaefer here, because Here we go. There we go.
Here we
Yes.
go.
Okay. Now watch this interaction here. So we got Nathan.
Nathan Swindon says, "What did I mean by this? We are Koreans. We are Jews." Elijah Schaefer says, "Not all Jews are globo homo, and there are plenty of Jews in Russia, many of which might support an independent state. I'm sure there are gays in Russia that support them too. It doesn't take away the fact that you have a gay Jewish comedian running Ukraine sacrificing white Christian men."
So, I mean, if we go back to like one of these streams that I was talking about, like the metamorphosis of the American Eurasianist, right, where you start off with this kind of standard patriotic nationalist viewpoint, and you end up with this kind of completely inverted pro-Russian Eurasianist viewpoint. He's pretty much one of those guys, in my view. Like, it's like the JQ doesn't matter anymore. Like, Russian Jews are good, Western Jews are bad, right? Russian Muslims are good, and Western Muslims are bad. And it's, in a sense, like it's basically just Russia good, the West bad. That's kind of the end point of sitting and consuming all this Russian slop that a lot of these people have just psyop themselves into, unless they're actually getting paid to say this stuff, which he might be as well. I mean, the feedback is pretty negative. It's not it's not great, but I think it helps to sort of underline a point that I've been trying to make. So, I mean, especially looking at this stuff, you have to rule out the brother war stuff if they're like bringing the entire multicultural world to sit and crunch them. So, but like part of the reason I wanted to talk about this is because we were going to get into the UK riots, right? And a part of what's been going on there has been, escalations of tensions in the UK by, let's say, like influencers like Tommy Robinson, for example. And there's been accusations of Russian disinfo as well, which as well as Israeli. Robinson? No, yeah, from Tommy Robinson or from, well, okay, I'll get more into it. The dissident right line on this stuff. I mean, I'm jumping a little bit ahead of the things. We could go through everything in chronological order as to how it fits in, but the dissident right arguments, right, that have been going on around this event has been that Tommy Robinson is basically in the UK to stoke tensions between Christians and Muslims. That's not controversial, right? That's what he is.
Sort of the meme of him never being there when shit goes down.
Yeah, he's in Cyprus now, right?
Yeah.
So he just fucked off to some tax saving place and is just relaxing after he has led these protests and escalated the violence towards it. And a part of the theory goes that he is there on behalf of Israel because he is a very pro-Israeli guy, very pro-Zionist. And I'm watching him on Twitter, and he's interacting with these Zionist accounts all the time. They're very fond of him. Like they give him praise, talk about how great he is. I mean, he's been to Israel. He's very affiliated with that network. And then the theory goes that it's like he is there to stoke animosity between Muslims and Christians to essentially, like, the takes is that that's going to help recruitment numbers, right? I think that's a little far-fetched, but that they are going to that you can recruit like young British men to the forever wars because they have stoked animosity between Muslims and Christians in the UK. I'm sure you've seen some of these allegations.
I've heard the take, but it seems kind of far-fetched when the problem is, as it is in UK, so much literally, the problem is literally right outside your front door, right?
Yes.
It's not some theoretical, like in America, the sort of space and the distance between a lot of people makes it a bit easier to do this sell, right? But in the UK, it's going to be a bit difficult, right? Because the problem is literally in front of your nose.
Okay, I mean, the UK is one of these countries where, like, the decline is visible, right? It's a sort of, we've had Nomad on this show talking about the lack of investments, the failing infrastructure, rampant privatization, high immigration. It's sort of everything is going wrong in the UK, and there seems to be no good way of turning it around. They recently tried to do the 0 seats campaign, and it's now talk of like Keir Starmer resigning. I don't know who's going to be, if they're going to have like prime ministers for longer than maybe 6 months periods at the time in the UK now. it seems to be an absolute kind of nut house, moving towards a sort of Clockwork Orange type of society.
Yeah.
But because I keep seeing it, like there's even before this stuff, I'm on Twitter and I just constantly stuff happening in the UK, and I assume that the combination of a failing economy, lack of opportunities with population density and high immigration is just a kind of powder keg. With these events are sort of just going off.
To Nomad a couple of streams ago, what's sort of convincing me more and more about a lot of stats is that I no longer look for per capita numbers. I look for critical mass, and the UK seems to be hitting a lot of critical masses at the same point, right?
Yeah, exactly. Let's see, my internet is just, I'm wondering if it's a browser, if there's some kind of like scripting thing that's going on when I'm sharing, which means I just seems like I can't load the
but if it's the links that you've sent me,
if it's the links, I can try to send them to you. I don't know if my internet seems to be working fine in this browser.
But are they in the document you sent me? Because
they're in the document, and I can put them in the private chat as well.
Okay, sure. So this is the Tommy Robinson tweet.
There's a Tommy Robinson tweet here because there's a certain things that I looked into in regards. I mean, I was not that familiar with Tommy Robinson before. I just sort of hear about him from Brits, where they're talking about him as a sort of containment guy. He's like a Zionist shill in a sense. But I mean, yeah. So they've talked about him as like an agent for recruiting British men into the forever wars that is projected to happen in the Middle East coming up. I mean, my view on it is actually that it's less complicated than that. It's more to do with taking attention away from Palestinian protesters, because the UK already is giving full support to Israel. They were doing that with the Tory government, and now they have a Labour government in where all of the hardcore,
who would ever be critical of Israel,
anti-Zionist elements are purged. Keir Starmer is married to a Jewish woman, and they've obliged complete loyalty to Israel. So what you're sort of seeing here is I think, because it works with the timing, when Tommy Robinson started to roll out this kind of 2-tier justice system meme. Are you getting the tweet up? Or
yeah, I'm bringing it up right now.
So the timing coincides with the Palestinian protests, and you can see this on the tweet as well. So there's like two-tier policing. That's the narrative that he has been pushing.
So this is from November last year. When,
this is the first
after the October
time,
7, probably.
Yeah, on this Twitter account, this is the first time he's pushing that meme, 2-tier policing, and it's happening like he's responding to pro-Palestinian protests, because there were big pro-Palestinian protests in the UK, and there were also counter-protesters. And the reason he's rolling that that meme out there is because there was an impression that the police were treating essentially the pro-Palestinian protesters with silk gloves, and they were just coming down with the iron fist on the the white working class Israel supporters. And I mean, he's kept rolling that meme forward, but this is where it starts, right? And I mean, now this meme has almost become mainstream. You're seeing people like Elon Musk is even pushing this now. The question is then, how do you interpret that stuff? I'm just looking at it as this happens exactly at the same time when the big anti-Israel protests are happening. Like, you have a large dormant population in Western countries that are Muslim, who we've talked about it before, but they have very little political agency in Western countries. They complain, but they don't vote in elections much. They're not good at organizing for causes. They're generally not interested in sort of the daily goings on of Western politics. But there is one thing they're organized on, and that is the Israel-Palestine question.
I was going to say, wait. There's one thing they're very good at organizing, and that's grooming gangs.
yeah, that too. But it's not exactly a political.
That's true.
Rape gangs is not a political issue in that sense. It's just a bit more of a
but I do agree.
I don't want to make jokes.
Be quite invisible up to a certain point, of course.
So, and the question is like whether or not this is an accurate representation of reality, like the two-tier policing thing, because it's very easy to get caught up in selective data here. You can find examples of where the police favors one group over another, and I don't doubt it when I'm seeing actual Brits coming on Twitter and complaining about unfair treatment, especially in regards to some of the hate speech stuff that you're seeing, like with the Towler family and the people who are being put in jail in Britain for, say, like very petty Facebook posts and these other types of things. That there is a double standard there in terms of what kind of hate speech that are being prioritized, as opposed to actually trying to deal with effectively larger gangs and so on.
Of course.
The purpose here, right, from a foreign agent perspective, if you are Israel, and what I think that they want to get out of this is to take the attention away from foreign policy and bring it on to domestic policy. In a sense, so that the attention that they're trying to bring onto the Palestinians is now brought onto a kind of like Christian versus Muslim problem, which is a problem.
But
I've never been. Yeah, sorry.
I don't see. Maybe I'm jumping ahead here because I don't see, how this translates into, go do another war in the Middle East.
It doesn't translate into it, because that's what I'm saying is that they're not trying to recruit people. They already have the support they can get from the UK government. They're trying to stop the support from slipping, in a sense. They're afraid that if the attention is brought onto the Palestinians, they're going to lose support. That's my thesis, is that they just try to shut down essentially everyone that's bringing attention to Palestine on a large scale. By essentially just bringing the focus back onto domestic issues. And this is sort of what I see as the MO of like foreign agents, whether they be from China, Russia, Iran. And the way that they try to operate is that, it's only about the stuff that's going on domestically in the country. And talking about, stuff that's going on in Israel or Ukraine, Russia, that kind of stuff, you don't talk about that. That's not interesting. That's not what we're going to focus on. As long as there are problems domestically, that's where the resources should go. That's what we should talk about. And you could sort of see, because it was very similar. If you think back to the stream we discussed Mannerheim. If you remember, like they did the counter jihad protest. And what I saw there and what I commented on is that there were actors online that were perpetuating a narrative that the police were protecting Muslims. Does this sound familiar? I mean, the police were protecting Muslims, like they were jumping on top of these German counter-jihadists to protect the knife-wielding Muslims. And then he got stabbed. That's what was the allegation was. That was the popular narrative, and a lot of these big accounts were pushing it, even though we looked through the video together and we proved that it wasn't the case. That just was not happening. The policeman did exactly what he was supposed to do. He did not favor the knife man. But the big narrative that was pushed by a lot of these large right-wing accounts, and that ended up in the mouth of a lot of these mainstream opposition people, is that like the German police were defending the Muslim knife man. Essentially, the narrative is your government is siding with Muslims against you, even though your government is officially as pro-Israel as it can get. In the case of Germany, for example, the government is this is a super pro-Zionist government, much because of like the.
So what you're
Holocaust.
saying is that this isn't about getting, as the saying goes, white boys to die in their wars. This is about just getting the attention away from whatever we're doing.
Yeah, attention away from Israel, essentially, and make sure that you're maintaining the support for Zionism, because you're not going to, having Muslims and Christians fighting and having like the white population believing that their governments are intrinsically pro-Muslim, right? That they're pro-Muslim and anti-white. So, I mean, what leads from that is almost usually like an implicit support for Israel if you're not read up on any kind of, let's say, JQ stuff, or you're not interested in what's going on there. It's much more sort of immediate existential issue that your government is siding with Muslims, essentially. And that's a lot of these narratives that have been pushed by, you're seeing a lot of these right-wing accounts. This is, however, not meant to distract from the fact that that is an actual problem. I actually don't believe that the governments are favoring Muslims, but I certainly do believe that Muslims, like having large Muslim populations in these countries, are a problem. I don't want that. I don't think we're getting along with these people. I would like to see some kind of remigration program.
I don't know if I'm not a Brit myself, and it's hard to get every detail, but I'm not sure if favoring Muslims is the right word. It's more like we don't want to poke that particular bear, right?
Yeah,
And
I think they're.
and in the police work, it's very apparent, right?
Yeah, my view is that they basically, like you said, they have an anxiety with touching this stuff, because on one hand, like they're supposed to be liberal, and you're supposed to give minorities protection, and being liberal and being in a liberal society and having to sort of deal with completely illiberal populations, it's a very difficult thing to do, and it's very sort of, you're afraid to misstep, you're afraid to overstep, you don't want to make yourself look bad, and you don't exactly know how, where the boundaries are. Say if they're like some of these Muslim communities that we've talked about, if they are completely closed off and they operate within like this kind of friend enemy distinction view of the police, then there's very little the police can do from the perspective of like this kind of constitutional liberal country. They just don't have the tools that they need to break up these Muslim groups within the liberal paradigm, which becomes sort of the problem. And the bigger these groups become, whether it's because of immigrations, birth rates, or so on, then it will become more difficult to do that. So it's nice to have the discussions. I just need to keep track of where we are in terms of a couple of points. So I don't doubt that there are cases where the police are prioritizing white people because that's just easier for them. But I don't subscribe to the idea that like Western governments are like inherently pro-Muslim. That there's sort of this idea of the cultural Marxist left. I mean, I was fed on that stuff as well, right? But the idea that like the people in government are actually they're secretly Muslim, and they just want to promote Muslim stuff until it's too late, or I don't see enough evidence for it. I get it. I think it's a very convenient narrative to push, but the problem is that I'm seeing the people who are pushing it, and those people are usually funded by foreign agents. That's the problem. So, I mean, I just wanted to do maybe a quick timeline of what exactly has been happening here, because this stuff didn't happen in a vacuum.
One moment here.
Yeah.
Martin Webb says this is a piss weak take. The UK justice system clearly favors Muslims. Well, I don't know specifics of the UK Muslim. UK.
That might be
system.
true.
If you have any examples, from the justice system where it favors Muslims, then I'm all for it. But I think it's not what we're saying is that. Well, I'm
no expert. We should have reactionary reading law in here, perhaps. And it's very possible that you have set up these liberal justice systems in ways that favor minorities, usually, as opposed to give minorities
speech laws and all that
solid
stuff, right?
protections, which is true. But often when I see these types of narratives where they talk about, like, there's a lot of selection bias going on in these types of cases, but I'm not going to die on that hill in particular. The point anyway will have to stand that essentially, I think that what a lot of these foreign agents want in pushing this particular narrative is to take attention away from foreign policy, but without actually trying to minimize the actual problem of what's going on there, right? Because this is the kind of a dicey thing. I agree that Muslims suck. It's just there's a lot of insidious things that are going on here. So as a timeline here, let's see, June the 19th, you have riots that are going on between sort of Bangladeshi people related to, there's like revolutions and stuff going on in Bangladesh. At the same time, there's riots in Leeds over the kind of like some Roma peoples who had their kids taken away by childcare in the UK as well. Which this is something that I remember reading on, like when I was reading it on social media, that was also presented as like this kind of Muslim riot or something, but when it was actually something else. Then on July the 25th, there were like these anti-police protests because they were pushed these videos to social media of the guy in the airport who was kicked in the face. I don't know if you remember them.
I'm trying to remember, but yes, I remember something about that. Yes.
But yeah, that was the sort of typical kind of Rodney King type moment where they had the video of the cop basically kicking the police guy without the stuff that leads up to that. So with that clip alone that was published, it sort of led to larger.
I remember now.
Yeah, would you say like larger protests on that particular thing? And then so people are already quite amped up coming to this point, and now we're at the 29th, where the 3 girls are killed in what is it, Southport?
Southport, yes.
Yes. So that's
3 girls are killed, and I believe he tried to kill a number of others. I think he got like arrested on like 10 counts of attempted murder or something.
Yes. And like this is where a lot of the funky stuff comes in, because this kicks off riots, right? But the thing is that the riots are targeted specifically at Muslims, and there were attacks on local mosque, and also an attack on a sort of asylum seeker hotel. And it's believed that a lot of that was based on misinformation that was put out about the ethnicity and religion of the perpetrator, right? So we've seen pictures of the perpetrator. So he's certainly not like native British. He's not white. He's a Rwandan, apparently. But there were information about him being Muslim that was pushed out that was false. And a bunch of other information as well about that he had been investigated previously and so on. I mean, we could take a look at a thread here that I found very interesting. I'll link it to you and you could share it on Twitter, because there's a guy that sort of goes through.
Mark Owen Jones?
Yeah. Did you see that one? I put it in the private chat there. I think we should go through that one together, because he had some really interesting views on it, and a kind of overview of everyone who was sharing these things.
Let me just bring that up here. Do you want me to just start at the top?
Yeah, you could just start reading it from the top, and we can stop to a pause and just discuss things as they come up.
South. An anti-Muslim disinformation and propaganda. In this thread, I highlight key spreaders of disinformation, the chronology, and some points about some of the inauthentic activity evident. I will focus on X. And then he has a couple of channels here linking each other. First, what we know so far. The attacker, 17, was born in Cardiff but moved to near Southport. There is no indication of his religion, and his parents have been reported as being from Rwanda. Although, again, questionable why this is relevant. Well, I mean, okay, whatever. Firstly, there were at least 27 million impressions for posts stating or speculating that the attacker was Muslim, a migrant, refugee, or a foreigner. There were people also denouncing these speculations, especially the more racist ones. This graph has been filtered to show accounts that spread this speculation over time, adjusted to UK time. The size of the circle relates to the number of the impressions. Some of the most influential included are Cobra Tate, Darren Grimes, Europe Invasion, and Anthony Fowler.
So just you stop here, right? Because there's some usual suspects that are coming up. Cobra Tate, and that's Andrew
Europe
Tate's
Invasion.
account.
I've seen get stuff plain wrong many times.
I mean, I've talked about many times how Europe Invasion is a sort of foreign agent disinfo account, and there's just so much suspect stuff going on there. I mean, Europe Invasion had a tweet about the attacker being Muslim that got almost 7 million views here, but he tweets other stuff like fake statistics. He'll put up videos of I've seen him put up videos of like fetish stuff. That is like, it's just kind of obvious, interracial fetish stuff, the exhibitionism, and put this up as like this kind of, oh, what do you think about what's happening in Germany or stuff like that? It's completely dishonest, including some sort of like really weird English that you typically see with a lot of these accounts who are pretending to be like one of the guys there. Andrew Tate has also been quite interesting, that he's been spreading a lot of that Muslim rhetoric. I mean, I said on Twitter that I think Andrew Tate has to be one of the most like cynical, opportunistic people around, because before this event, he's sort of been milking, like he tries to appeal to a lot of these niche communities that are on like the fringe right all the time.
Yeah.
And it's just one day it's the crypto bro stuff, the next day it's like Muslims, and then he's going more like this kind of race realism stuff. He's been talking about like white people aren't breeding enough, or you're going to be outbred, you should fight back. White men have to toughen up, and the West is over. We should close our borders. Here's the typical knife wielding immigrants. Like every single mimicking type talking point. It's almost like a kind of invasion of the body snatcher type thing there, where he's just kind of jumping into the skin of whatever you want to hear, and he just keeps pushing it for more engagement. But of course, after he got caught with this stuff, right, and there were other people quoting him as well, like Nigel Farage actually cited Andrew Tate as a source for stuff that he published on this the Southport attack, by the way.
That's wild.
So there are like these news segments you can find where he has to sit and apologize for it, and like it's just unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. I mean, I hate to go into that mode of sounding like these kind of enraged shit-lib people, but if you are a politician on that level and you're like actually using Andrew Tate as a source, I understand that you could be subscribed to him privately and just kind of laugh at his posts or whatever, but like this is someone you seriously trust with your information. It's pretty concerning, to be honest. But like these are there are just so many people on the right wing that are using like Europe Invasion Cobra Tate. I've seen it on even like local Norwegian right wing people who are leaders in these fringe parties are actually using them as news sources and replying to it as if it's serious, when it's very clearly some type of malicious foreign interference. It's quite, it's concerning. You can go on. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No. Do you want me to keep reading the thread?
Yeah, just keep going.
Nate claims the attacker was an illegal immigrant. Fowler claims they were Syrian. Europe Invasion claimed they were Muslim. Grimes suggests that they are refugees. Either way, xenophobic speculation. Of course, Tommy Robinson is also in the mix. Another aspect of this campaign is someone making up an Arabic-sounding name for the attacker, Ali al-Shakati. As others have mentioned, the account that first mentioned this was Artemis for Now. They deleted this tweet and did not say where the name came from. Following this mention, other accounts started using the name Ali al-Shakati, despite there being no legitimate source for this. It's worth noting that well-known right-wing accounts that end wokeness also tweeted this, citing at Channel 3 Now News. However, at Channel 3 Now News is obviously an illegitimate website. Indeed, I found 4 Facebook pages connected to them. One of these pages was repurposed. It used to be called Funny Hours in 2016, but changed its name to Fox 3 News and then Channel 3 Now. Those who operated are reported to be in Pakistan and the US. Their website doesn't have anything by the way of a serious About Us page, and the only author I could find through checking the sitemap was James Lawley. This goes back to a LinkedIn profile of a guy running a lawn company in Nova Scotia. I want to talk about Europe.
So yeah, just pausing a little bit, because we're going to take a look at some more deep dives on the Channel 3 News now, and a bit of the tracing of that channel, and that's quite interesting. But yeah, in terms of the Facebook accounts, it's very typical for these disinfo accounts to just buy accounts. It's something you can do online. It's just like you buy Twitter accounts, or there's these auctions that are going off, and you can just pay like $1,000, $100 to get an account that maybe it's like some kind of nutrition account or some sort of sporting thing, like a crypto thing, and then
it's really bad on Facebook. It's really turned Facebook into a cesspool even more than it used to be. So
Facebook is like shady back alleys. I mean, like Twitter is like Disinfo Central, like this. It's like foreign agent central, but Facebook is like this kind of shady boomer back alley page now. It's like, oh yeah, do you want some drugs? Yeah, you could. Here's a group, like a private group for people who like this type of drug, or you want to cheat on your wife? Well, you have a page for that. And I mean, I'm just getting so much weird shit on Facebook constantly, and all of the commercials are porn.
I haven't used Facebook in years. I wouldn't know, but I hear stories from friends. Yeah.
Yeah, even like things that look like terrorist networks and stuff that you get on there that they try to. What are you interested in this group or something that is like jihadi terrorists? I mean, it's just nuts. It's just nuts. I mean, they have to retain viewership. It's just the type of people they're retaining that are just awful. So sorry, you can keep going.
All right. I want to talk about Europe Invasion. This account, which was briefly suspended and has now been reinstated, used to be called Mankind Crypto. It was then scrubbed and repurposed and now promotes anti-Muslim and anti-immigrant stories and spreads disinformation. Although it says it was created in 2010, it's only tweeted in its current incarnation since around February 2024. It quickly got over 300,000 followers. It routinely gets thousands of likes and retweets, which are almost certainly inauthentic too. That was one of the first and most shared. Let's see here. It was one of the first and most shared accounts to share the rumor that the attacker was Muslim. I will likely add more to this thread, but worth mentioning that while people always spread incorrect information in the wake of a tragic event, we saw this with Sydney, there is a clear attempt to exploit the tragic incident by right-wing influencers and grifters pushing anti-immigration and xenophobic agenda, despite there being no evidence.
Okay, but
the list of shame, top 10 accounts. Yes.
what was it? Can we look at the list of shame? I didn't look to see here. End wokeness, Cobra Tate.
Illegal immigrants stab 6 little girls. End wokeness, Tommy Robinson. I'm meme zero. B Gates is a psycho.
That's Concerned Citizen. Like I talked about him previously.
Yes.
He's the guy who pushes the Putin stuff all the time.
Mossad ill. Darren Grimes, Europe Invasion. Garrow Online.
And these are people that some of these are people that Elon Musk promotes. By the way, I mean, you know, he even made some tweets surrounding these riots, where he's talking about like civil war is inevitable in the UK. I mean, it's quite weird. I saw some threads where if you go on Elon Musk's, you go on Twitter Advanced Search and you try to search up his name and civil war, you can see how many times he's been talking about like civil war is inevitable on these various threads, like civil war is inevitable in France, in England, in this and that, and like I don't know how to feel about this, honestly. I mean, I was because there's a lot of people in our spheres who thinks he's really based, right? I was reading Charlemagne's Substack on this.
Wait, Andrew Tate?
No, I'm not Andrew Tate. I'm talking about Elon Musk.
Oh, Elon Musk.
Yes.
I thought the consensus in a lot of the dissident right, at least, has been that Elon isn't really our guy and has been for quite a while.
Yeah, well, it goes back and forth. I talked about this previously as well. That there seems to be no good mapping as to whether he's a friend or an enemy. It seems to me, you know, from reading Charlemagne's Substack, that he thought he was quite based. And I don't know what to make of it. I mean, if people are complaining that like Tommy Robinson is a Shabbos goy and he's pushing civil war stuff, and that's bad. But when Shabbos goy Elon Musk is doing it, then it's cool. Again, it's quite confusing, and well, more confusion to come. Let's just finish the thread, and we could look at some other.
Ultra Radical Centrist says, so we will pretend he's not Rwandan. No, I mean, the guy we're reading from is pretending he's not Rwandan because he's probably a shit lib. What we're pointing out is a lot of these accounts who are on purpose causing, you know, confusion and delay. Sorry, do you want me to keep reading?
Yeah.
Update. Now there are protests outside a mosque in Southport, highlighting the dangers of propaganda and misinformation. The Channel 3 Now News YouTube account's early videos are in Russian and seem to be about car rallies. However, you will notice that those videos are about 11 years old. Then there's nothing for about 6 years, and then a bunch of videos about Pakistan. Again, this suggests that a Russian car rally fan had their account hijacked and repurposed, as opposed to a Russian disinfo op. The Pakistan connection is interesting, though, especially as in some of the content people use the term Mohammedan to mean Muslim, which would be archaic in English. For those asking about tooltip, blah, 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 thread documenting a similar formula, okay. Merseyside police have stated that the name Ali al-Shakati is fake. I'm not sure if there's anything else going on here.
I think we're good on that one, but
Yeah.
I want to just look more at the Russian allegation here, because you have the journalist Catherine Jenkinson from the Times Radio that made a video on it, and you could look a little bit at the video, and I just want to look at the response on this video, which I mean, I totally get the argument that this could have been a Russian car fans account that was repurposed to be essentially like a Pakistani disinfo site. But I'm putting the link in the private chat now. If you look at the responses in the comments on that video, I think it struck a nerve with the Russian trolls, essentially. Did you get it up in the chat?
Yeah, just give me one moment here. I'm blocked by an ad again. Yeah. Let's bring up the video here. I have to watch 2 ads. Jesus Christ.
I had to get YouTube Premium because of this. It's a little bit too much now.
But I put it up in like private mode to not get spammed with like cookie stuff. And now it's just okay, here we go. So we wanted to look at the comments.
Just listen to a little bit, maybe 2 minutes of the video, and
is I go looking for the source. And last night the information came up around this supposed teenager called Ali al-Shakati. So first things first, nobody should have that name. And that's primarily because he's 17. And in this country, 17-year-olds are minors. And according to the Crown Prosecution Service, you cannot legally identify a minor until after the process is done, so after the legal process is done. So then we go looking at who does have that name. And the first person I find is this Channel 3 News website. Their Twitter claims they're in the US. Their website says they're in the US. But then you scroll through their terms and conditions and you find that they list no jurisdiction. Now in the States, most websites will list their legal terms and conditions saying what jurisdiction, what state they're in, because each state's laws are slightly different. This one does not, which tells me a lot about where they may or may not be. It's highly unlikely they are in the US at this point. Next step is to go and find the journalists. And this website has no named journalists. There's a red flag because most news outlets have actual people working for them. So the next step is their YouTube channel. If you start searching by oldest posts first, you find that 12 years ago, they were posting very, very amateurish videos of a couple of young Russian lads buzzing around fields in cars. And at some point between then and now, it's become Channel 3 News. So we now know that the only place posting this is not a news outlet.
Now.
Yes.
The problem here is that I wish I'm wondering if I should try to jump out of the conference call and jump in again, because it looks like all of my browsers have locked down. So, but like on my YouTube, I have an extension where you can see the dislikes, right? And it's very, very high on this video.
Okay.
And that's not usual for Times Radio, right? And you look at the comments here, it's just Russia, blaming Russia, let's blame Russia involved, haha, like. It looks like 80% of the comments is like, oh, Russia stuff, right?
I mean, either, maybe
this
the
is
comments
not normal for Times Radio, by the way. Like they publish, it is like a liberal radio show, and they publish anti-Russia stuff all the time. It's completely, they post stuff about Putin, about the Ukraine war, about this stuff, this sort of critical of Russia, but you do not get this type of response as you get here. Usually they have a positive like to dislike ratio. Like the normal viewership are just like regular British liberals who watch this stuff. But on this video, it's like bombarded with dislikes, full of just like Russia comments. And the channel itself that she refers to was deleted. So the tweet was deleted. It was retweeted by Russia Today and a lot of Andrew Tate, these people, and they deleted the channel. And like the videos that they have talking about it is just bombarded by these fucking Russia trolls in the comments. And that's the reason I think it's actually more plausible that that this is actually a Russian op than not, because this is just not normal behavior on these channels. Because I mean I follow this quite a bit, and it's just you just don't see this normally. So I mean the thing to think about here is that people sort of, the ruling narrative, especially on the right and the dissident right, is that this is like, it's Israeli foreign interference. and they rule out Russian foreign interference. I think a lot of that is because they think that, because of a lot of influencers in this space, like say Thomas 777 and Eric Stryker and these people who have this magical view of Russia, that like Russia is at a secret war with Israel or something, where they think that these two countries are sort of opposed to each other, which I've talked about in previous streams is not the case at all. They actually have quite cordial relations with each other, and very often their foreign policy goals overlap. So you are going to have a lot of actors in the West who are both sponsored by Israel and Russia at the same time.
And none of them give a crap about you. That's the fun part. Yeah.
That is actually the norm more often than not when you look at the right-wing parties, whether it's Alternative for Deutschland, National Assembly in France, Geert Wilders in the Netherlands. I mean, this is the standard thing. They will openly brag about getting Zionist funding, and they will sort of take Russian funding more on the hush-hush. And the foreign policy is always the same. It's kind of non-involvement with Russia. It's sort of like, we're not going to be involved there, and we're going to support Israel with money. That is the typical position that they advocate. And they justify the non-involvement in Ukraine with, okay, we have to wipe asses at home, right? There are people who need diaper changes. In our country, we have to do things domestically, so we can't afford to help Ukraine, but we can afford to help Israel because they're pushing back Muslims in the Middle East. They're sort of front, like a bulwark against the Muslims that are coming here.
The horde. Even though
Islam is like the fastest growing religion in Russia, and the places that the Russians are occupying are being filled up with Muslims. So they don't care that much about that. Even Tommy Robinson is completely on board with all this Russia stuff. If you look at his Twitter, he has all of the Russian talking points. All of that stuff is down. So that's really my point. I'm not like, when I'm saying that this is Russian influence, I don't mean to exclude Israeli influence. Usually it's the same people who are going to be sponsored by both. And I think that's what we're seeing here. So there was just a fun little Easter egg that I wanted to do at the end. We had George Galloway's reaction to this.
Sure,
not to Russia, but to the riots.
Yeah. One moment here. Can I just do this? Or is it gonna... Oh, it's gonna let me do it. Okay. There are mobs roaming UK cities, violently attacking any non-white people they can find. Our weakened police force is being attacked. Their vehicles and police stations are set on fire. The Prime Minister is missing. Thousands are in fear of their lives. Our armed forces are everywhere else but here. Big thing.
So here we have the based George Galloway, like anti-Iraq war based George Galloway, the family values based George Galloway. And his view is basically that foreign wars are bad because we can't have the military here to oppress our own population.
Right.
That's essentially his super bit. Like I honestly view George Galloway as like the biggest piece of filth on the planet. Like, and I don't think people understand that, especially on the far right, because they've gotten so hung up on this kind of like trans, anti-woke, masculinity, femininity, like feminized men thing. And when they look at these sort of old school commies, they think masculinity. That's the kind of thing, and they think, oh, he's opposed to foreign wars. He's not opposed to foreign wars because he thinks we should make it better at home. He's opposed to foreign wars in Iraq because he supports Iraq and he supports China, and he supports like every non-white anti-Western regime in existence, and he has done that his entire life. He has been like a paid Russia shill most of his adult life, like the top paid guy on Russia Today for doing this show that was called Around the World in the Sputnik, right? So this is like Tucker Carlson in the 2010s without the retarded alien stuff and the appeals to the Christianity. It was just pure Russian propaganda.
Yeah,
all the time. I mean, this guy is not just like, he doesn't just spew Russian propaganda. He is Russian propaganda. That is just his entire life to be in the West and push these types of viewpoints. And his views is like, it's not like the soft managerial elite stuff that, or if you're a white person and you want to defend your country against Muslims, we're going to debank you, or we're going to kick you out of Facebook or something. He literally wants like the Red Army rolling in tanks, blasting your brain out because you're trying to defend yourself against Muslims. That's what he wants. That's like his masculine solution to it. And because he makes an allusion to that he doesn't like gay people or something, then he's like, oh, fucking based. fuck you, this R guy based Galloway, right? But in my view, just this is the epitome of evil for me. It's absolute.
Real quick here, Vingo says Tucker Carlson with the alien stuff. Did Ludwig mean Alex Jones? No, I do believe you meant Tucker Carlson.
Have you not been paying attention, Vingo? I mean, Tucker Carlson's been doing a lot of alien stuff. He has been bringing on people who talk about aliens, aliens and demons. That's been one of his bigger talking points. Now, when he's not interviewing, Russians, he's having these people on or talking about like UFOs, demons, occult stuff. So it's just completely unnecessary. I don't particularly care for it. Better on Fox News, but I don't think that's a controversial take. So yeah, I think we've covered enough on this particular thing. But this is just the angles that I wanted to talk about, like some of the disinfo that's come out. I don't know if you had something that you think we missed here.
In this particular angle, no, I don't think so. I mean, we could comment on it from the dissident right angle if you wanted to, but I do believe everything that has to be said has already been said to a certain extent.
Well, okay, yeah, I'll try to wrap up a couple of things now, because the UK is facing all of these riots, and they're not just in an economic crisis and an infrastructure crisis, but they're also now facing a prison crisis, which is that they don't have enough room in the prison. So even though they want to arrest everybody, they can't do it. And of course, I disavow any kind of violence or anything like that, but just from a completely theoretical point of view.
They literally can't arrest you all.
Yeah. Prisons being full is a sort of, if you're interested, if you were hypothetically interested in civil disobedience, then prisons being full, it creates a bit of a different dynamic, right? Where they can't do this kind of full electric eye technocratic dystopia if they don't have enough cops to deal with it. So I mean, I'm expecting like the future of the UK to be more of this, like I said, this kind of Clockwork Orange type society where they're going to have to start bringing back gangs and stuff like that. They're probably on the way already. If the police can't bring sufficient security, then gangs will be the alternative, and they're most likely going to be drawn along ethnic lines. Especially if they're putting all these protesters in prison and they're meeting each other there, it's just going to lead to further radicalization. So I don't think there's any. Starmer doesn't seem to have any good ways of calming down this rhetoric, at least from what I've seen. It's
he has been playing this entirely wrong. I believe, like, just in a pure like technical analysis, every move has been wrong. So
yeah, I don't know if the zero seats people are having buyer's remorse or whatever, but. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. I do sort of suspect with the UK situation that no matter who you put in power there, given the parameters of where we are, things are just going to keep circling the drain. There's only so much you can do if like every system is failing, right? You could hold some nice speeches and try to keep morale up, but I mean, things will just get worse, and then maybe they'll get better as a result of them getting worse, but they will not be able to maintain this kind of 1984 woke thing that they've been trying to do for a while. So I guess that's an upside.
Yeah.
I think
it's not sustainable, but that means it's not sustainable, so it's going to hurt. So
I mean, Klaus Schwab is cited as saying you're going to eat the bugs and you're going to live in the pod. I mean, he never actually said those things, but I think Klaus Schwab actually did say is that we must prepare for an angrier world. I think he was.
I mean, if you read
right.
between the lines, listening to someone like Tony Blair speak, like he knows sort of the transition to whatever he envisions, it's going to hurt like hell, right? Like what he envisions, the path to his sort of utopia is going to be very, very rough, no matter how you slice it. But of course, he's an excellent speaker, so he makes that sound excitable. But there seems to be, at least on the technocrat side, no illusion of sort of the difficulty of what they're trying to pull off.
No, I think he's got the good head on his shoulders, but I don't know if he's going to make a comeback or something. It seems
I don't think he could save it, to be honest. Like, I think just the numbers, like the sort of the physical entropy, so to speak, is just against him, right? He's trying to basically they're trying to slingshot themselves out of the civilizational cycle, but at this point, the gravity is just kind of too strong. You're not going to make it to the moon, right?
Yep. No, it's. I mean, I pray. I don't really pray, but if I did, I would pray for my British brothers. I mean,
Yeah.
on that topic, I'm going to use that as a segue to the last topic here, which is related to the Christian-Muslim alliance, because that's one of the things that have been completely harpooned with what's been happening in the UK. Because I mean, no matter how much you talk about foreign interference, the problem is still there. You can have foreign agents that try to agitate, spread misinformation, and increase the tension, but the problem is still there underneath. And no matter how focused people try to be on these foreign policy issues, it very quickly goes back to tribal politics. And so I've seen, people, let's say like the people who have been championing this Christian Muslim stuff, like what's his name again, Luke Gage, and these people that have just been disavowing people. The guy Suleiman Ahmed, who has been promoted by Nick Fuentes and some other people, he's been just completely shat on. And like another angle where this, Christian, Muslim, Western, non-Western stuff comes in, is really with the Olympics, right? Because there has been some controversy in regarding to, I don't know what you want to call it, like the proper vocabulary here, but the
South
female
Park
boxer
episode where Macho Man Randy Savage just beats a woman.
Yeah, that's what we're going with here. The alleged spousal abuse in the Olympics. I don't know if maybe you could Google some images of Imam Khalif here, because I had some images, but I seem to have so many issues with my browser, so we just have to cooperate. I'll post the name in the chat.
No, I have them here. I'm going to just share my screen. Here's some pictures from the event.
This has been one of the more, let's get a good one here. So, I mean, the controversy started with this fight that you're seeing a photo of here, which is Khalif here and the, I think it's the Italian contestant in the Olympic boxing in the welterweight weight class.
No, I think maybe is she from Algeria, or is that Iman Khalif?
No, the Iman Khalif is from Algeria, right? I think
that's the way it was.
The one in the blue is from Italy. That's at least what the flag looks like.
Yeah, the flag looks like Italy.
What happened is that she quit the match after 46 seconds. And then basically made some statements that she couldn't go on, and she was hit very hard. And this has sort of been blown up into a larger phenomenon, right? Because I don't know how to even start talking about this without just sort of embedding too many fake stories into it that haven't already been pushed there. But this is something that the American culture warriors have been having a field day with this, because they just sort of project. They love to project their own kind of domestic culture war bullshit onto the rest of the world. That's something I see as, if there is anything that's American privilege, is sort of being able to just kind of graft your own culture war nonsense onto the rest of the world and just kind of pretend that that's an analysis. I mean, so much of the what is in the sort of opposition space of American conservative media is just that, like say, like with people with Jordan Peterson or something, who doesn't know shit about foreign policy, who is just talking about like his own opinions on the culture war. But we will start with some facts here, okay? The IOC, that's like the Olympic Committee, now is running boxing. This is not typical, because in the Olympics, every sport is usually going to be run by the association that has that sport. The problem is that the association, the International Boxing Association, that we're supposed to arrange for these boxing competitions, have been cut from the IOC because of corruption problems, right? And this is something that it's not something that's happened recently. People think that it's only because Russia was canceled after the invasion of Ukraine, but it's actually something that happened sooner in 2019. So because of various breaches in and corruption and government sort of governance issues, the International Olympic Committee have decided to sort of take over boxing in a sense. So you still have the International Boxing Association operating, whereas the IOC is now running the Olympics. The reason that this controversy exists is that the boxer in question here, Iman Khalif, has taken 2 tests when she was competing in the IBA that were what they call gender specificity tests. It was not testosterone levels, and the actual specifics of that test has never been disclosed, neither have the results. But what's been alleged is that this woman or man has XY chromosomes, right?
Okay.
And is not therefore eligible to compete with women. So there are two sort of, let's just say there are three narratives here. I'm just going to group them roughly by 3 narratives that you can take from this information. The first one is that the tests are correct. XY chromosome means man. And what we're having here is essentially just a repeat of what you've seen in the United States with Fallon Fox. That was like this black woman who transitioned from male to female and fought in like cage matches against women.
That was MMA stuff, wasn't it?
Yes, that was MMA. And
beat up like Ronda Rousey or something. Yeah.
And you have Leah Thomas. That was a very famous case with this swimmer who transitioned to be a female, who was obviously a lot bigger than the other competitors and who won like the collegiate competitions. So she was like a college level swimmer, and that's the kind of lens that you're getting from the American culture warriors, all of these sort of Jack Posebic, these end wokeness accounts or whatever. They just keep relentlessly pushing this angle online, which or they do the South Park episode like with Randy Macho Man Savage, who's just beating up women in the ring, and they're saying that Europe is woke, and woke is ruining it, and like if you vote for Kamala Harris, then this is going to be your life. Right. I've just kind of, I don't know why, but I've just through looking at this case with regards to some of the facts that have come up, I've just kind of grown an even bigger distaste for the American MAGA-sphere than I already had. Because if you look on the other side, there is what I call like the shitlib narrative that you even get from like mainstream Norwegian news sources. And that is that the IBA is a corrupt organization. And they're, it's not just that they have corruption issues, but they're also a Russian organization that's financed solely by Gazprom. That's the company that basically does all the oil and gas in Russia. And the reason that they were doing these gender specificity tests that they've not actually revealed the results of is as a sort of ploy to protect their own fighters. Because what happened in 2003 in the Boxing Cup in India was that Iman Khalif here beat like a Russian undefeated favorite, essentially, and that's the narrative that they're going with. And because she did that, they sort of conjured up these sort of tests and basically said, you're disqualified because you have XY chromosomes. And they don't shy away from this narrative either, because like some of the Russian accounts, like one of the person that retweeted that recruitment video, I can post another video he posted. I'll link it to you in the private chat here, because they're sort of like Russia is excluded from the Olympics, right? So they're very much intent, if you look at these Russian accounts on Twitter, on trying to discredit the Olympics as much as possible. The Olympics is as much a sort of international relations event as it is a competition thing, right? And these big powers like Russia, China, US, it's always been like a sort of a sort of prestige thing, right? Even though they're wasting money doing it, if they can get their athletes in and show to the world that they have the best athletes, the most competent people, and that's kind of a W internationally. They've saved face and they look good, and they've advertised for themselves. So you could get the video with some sound and some text, so I could just comment on the context for it. So this is the fighter here that Iman defeated in the tournament. And they're running basically the narrative here. If you look at the text, you scroll a little bit up there, that it says a Russian boxer, it was Asalia Armenia, challenged Iman Khalif. Remember how I knocked you out in 2023? The Olympics without Russia is different. So they're pushing the narrative that if she had been in the Olympics, then she would knock out Iman Khalif, who is sort of set now to be in the finals. which is interesting because she lost the fight. It's like a 5-round fight, and she lost 4 rounds and won 1 round. So it was quite a decisive defeat. But even though she was defeated, and it's sort of alleged that they used these tests to save her record, because that's eventually what happens. All of the wins that Iman had in the IBA were annulled because of that test result. So this fighter has now maintained a sort of perfect record. I mean, this is also something that I can.
IOC do the same test then?
No, they don't. They don't have a gender specificity test. They basically use the passport gender, and they don't have any formal rules for this. And I mean, as far as the gender, I assume they have doping tests where they go over testosterone levels. That's pretty normal, where they look for that. But
what about other sort of sports then, like swimming, for example? You mentioned, right? What's stopping? Like, are there other organizations or associations for swimming that have already pre-vetted the candidates before they arrive at the Olympics?
Yeah, the individual organizations do that on their terms. So that's going to be different from each of the organizations. It's just that the IOC has taken over boxing, and they have basically ruled out the gender specificity tests. But I mean, if you're going to do a chromosome test, you need to do a blood test, basically, and then to have that confirmed. But okay, if we put the shit-live narrative aside, we have to look at the third possibility, that this test is actually correct, and that we are now dealing with someone with a chromosomal abnormality. This is like a House MD stuff. If you ever watched that show, that is like I think they had
literally an episode.
Yes,
where he has like a girl who's actually a boy or something. That's the source of all his or her illnesses or something. Yeah.
So it's misdiagnosed because it's actually a man. It's lupus. Yeah. But
that's the meme.
It's very because Iman is coming from Algeria. That's a sort of conservative Muslim country, right? They don't do like coming out as trans later in life. She has been a woman her entire life, right? She is sort of born with female parts upstairs and downstairs, and has competed in women's boxing on an amateur level for 7 years. And she has a boxing record as well. I'll send that to you, just a minute. So if then given the part, she has an XY chromosome, but then female parts upstairs and downstairs. And if they do test for testosterone in terms of doping, then we can assume that she has not had elevated testosterone levels beyond what is reasonable for a woman to have. So she has about 55 fights, 7 losses.
I mean, going by the image here, I'm looking at a gay man.
Yes. I mean, the physiognomy does check out in terms of evidence of looking at, like, okay, what's going on here, right? If you just look at the photo of her, she looks very masculine. But this is true for many female athletes who compete at the elite level.
I mean, there's even some Russian ones, right?
Butch women exists, it's a real thing. And like her boxing record, it's not.
It looks like Milo.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. But this boxing record is not like Mike Tyson dominating record. 10% knockout rate is not what I would consider dangerous. Like, these fights are mostly competitive fights if they go to a decision. And so she has been then competing, allegedly. She's actually been a man the whole time and had these fights. As far as I know, there's been no deaths or any kind of serious injuries. People have just done these fights, and it's not been a big deal until this last Olympics competition, where these fighters are suddenly just boycotting, right? Which is, for me, that's also quite suspect in terms of I mean, if you're looking at an Olympic athlete, this is someone typically who is trained their entire life and is generally willing to compete to the point of dying to win, and is generally trained to push through pain barriers in levels that regular people don't, right?
Sure.
I mean, you've had these, even whether they're like in non-combat sports, like gymnasts who will go out and finish doing these kind of flips and turns when they have like broken toes, for example. People who tear their ACL and continue onwards competing. So, I mean, when I'm seeing stuff like that, like in amateur boxing, where they have 10-ounce gloves and they have protective headgear, and the fighter gets punched in the face one time, she's not knocked out, she's not bleeding, right? I mean, I've done some amateur boxing myself. I've seen guys who have sort of been punched, broken their nose, fought through that. They've had swollen eyes and just had them open and kept fighting. So you're looking at then Olympic fighters who get punched in the face one time and say that this was so hard that I couldn't go on, even though there's no like visible signs of damage. To me, it's sort of I'm imagining that this is some of these fighters that have caught wind of that test failure, realizing that they were going to lose the fight, and then throwing the fight prematurely, and then just sort of blaming it on the XY stuff. And I mean, because it's just kind of bizarre, in my view, to want to end a boxing match prematurely for some stupid reason like that, unless you have some kind of excuse to fall back on. Like, I'm actually fighting a man. And they're sort of going in, and I've seen a lot of these other fighters doing this as well, sort of signaling out that this is unfair. And but this has, in a sense, worked. It has worked by being pushed by all of these anti-woke types to essentially discredit the Olympics to a very large extent. And I mean, it's a complicated issue. I hope at some point that she will actually do an independent test for this sort of XY chromosome, and we can figure out what's actually going on.
Yeah, I was going to say the simplest way here is to just do a test.
Yes, right? I mean, yeah, I would like to see that done, because.
And at this point, we're at, if you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear, right?
Yeah, I mean, completely. But in the case, I mean, what if the test is accurate? What do you do about that? Because that's also a sort of complicated issue if you have someone with like an XY.
Well, I mean, it's going to be a hassle to like retroactively do a bunch of stuff. Just ban her, right?
Yeah, so she'll just be banned then, of course. Yeah, that's what I assume. But it's it's quite a complicated issue, in a sense. What I'm sort of trying to just say here is that the issue is actually very kind of unique and complicated in many ways, but it's just sort of been fed into this MAGA culture war propaganda slop machine, in a sense, to the point where I'm at the point of like feeling bad for Imam, like, even though I don't really care for Muslims, but like this, the type of dialogue that you're seeing going on in I don't know if you follow much on Twitter. It's absolutely insane.
No,
it's in this kind of like cock and balls dick sphere that the Americans constantly occupy themselves in, like
new screenshots of Hunter Biden's penis.
Yeah, it's new Hunter Biden's dick, Michelle Obama's dick type stuff, right? Which is, I mean, like some of the new developments in the American election now has been how is the conservative wing going to respond to the new Democrat strategy that's calling them weird? I assume you've caught wind of that, right? The sort of Kamala Harris wise campaign strategy is like, okay, Republicans are weird, so they've gone away from this threat to democracy stuff and onto the just calling them freaks and weirdos strategy. And I've seen a lot of people kind of on the right saying that this is not going to work, but like, in my view, this has to be like the most effective strategy they could have possibly have rolled out, because it seems to completely drain the energy out of the Republican movement, in a sense. Like, when they're going on with this kind of crisis, our democracy is at stake stuff, all the MAGA people are hearing is that this is working, right? The elites are afraid. But when they turn it around and just basically say that these people are creeps and losers, and you can just sit and show endless Twitter threads of people talking about Michelle Obama's penis, or the sort of like Brigitte Macron is a man, and this kind of stuff, like, it's like I don't know how they're going to respond to it. They seem completely incapacitated by this this move, in a sense. So it'll be interesting if they're going to adopt some kind of more puritanical stance. But I mean, to me, this almost seems like a kind of a kill shot, in a sense, if they don't find some way to deal with it.
Do you think it's that powerful?
Well, I mean, what do you do with the slop? You know, I mean, half of the slop is like the slop is the movement, but the slop is just like tranny stuff.
Well, is the slop
You know,
the movement? I know that the MAGA tent is big, right?
yeah.
So how much of the MAGA tent is the online slop, right?
Well, I feel like if you looked at the Republican National Convention, it's quite a large amount of it, considering the if they're bringing porn stars and Hulk Hogan in as guests, I'd say that the slop part is actually quite a big part of MAGA 2.0.
Okay, so you think sort of like photos of Michelle Obama's dick and Hulk Hogan is the same part of the MAGA movement?
I think it appeals to a lot of the same people. Yeah, the people who
Well,
are
sure, it
into.
might appeal to the same, but is that sort of the same part of the actual grassroots movement? Maybe, I guess.
Well, I don't know how grassroots they are anymore. It seems like they just have. I mean, they have a lot of high level support now as well. That's kind of the problem, I think, for them, is that they can't pull the underdog card anymore in the same way when you have big tech and Elon Musk on your team and these other types.
Ultra radical centrist says a big tent is just a circus. Well, there you go.
Oh, okay.
Hunter Biden, BWC Groiper. Well, I mean, good luck, Americans. It's either that or you can join Nick Fuentes in voting for Kamala, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. I've just seen this development. That's all I've caught, is that they run out this kind of weird campaign. And to me, it seems like almost like a kind of kill shot when I'm looking at how they're responding to it. Because they just go back to doing more of the kind of tranny stuff. I mean, I don't know if you saw some. There were some like this graphic where they showed statistics of who were posting the most tranny-related content, and it's always conservative groups that keeps posting it, right? More than you see in like actual these sort of left-wing tranny-friendly spaces. So I think it's going to be really hard to recover from, especially when I'm just like looking at my Twitter feed daily, and I'm just seeing the stuff that they're pulling out. That it's going to be. It's just going to be that going forward.
Well, I'm at least happy that my feed is generally quite clean these days. It's a bit
I
up
should
and
do some
down
more
on
hygiene,
the
I
For
think.
You page, but
Yeah.
Let me see here. There were some things that I noticed in the chat that I wanted to bring up. Let's see here. I was watching a video about some guy who did doping for Olympics. They do a lot of massaging and deliberate not testing for certain things depending on the event. Yeah, I don't doubt that there might be a lot of stuff going on under the hood, as a lot of sports have been doing for a while. And there's sort of like a continuous job to clean up that stuff, whether or not, anything ever succeeds in sort of the doping area. It's hard to tell. Errol M on the Iman Khalif. So it's not a regular man playing dress up, but it's not a regular woman either. Yes. I guess that sums it up. Let's see.
Yeah, I mean, at least if this is a regular man, I think this man is as much a victim of this stuff as everybody else is.
Yeah.
At this point, so.
Ultra radical centrist said something that I starred a while ago. Did we mention AA going full damage control as if he fears them coming after him? Like who, the Muslims?
Maybe he means the government or something.
Oh, okay. Well, all I saw was him criticizing sort of Keir on sort of the technical handling of the situation, but I haven't seen his tweets for a while now, so maybe I should go on his profile and check it out.
No, I mean, I totally see that as well. It's very easy to get implicated in this, but like I said, if the prisons are full, what are they going to do?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, yeah, they have to cut at some point, right? They might as well just cut the internet stuff for. If they aren't, there's going to be some other internet people that are going to take your place maybe 6 months later, like you just get kicked out of jail.
Yeah.
At that point, so.
All right, and finally, Fourier86 asked Babby when? Babby soon, very soon, actually. And I think that's it. I don't think we have anything else on the notes here. I don't think we have anything in the chat. So I think we'll just end this with our usual shilling. Letting Path, if people want to
No,
follow,
you
where
can
can
just
they find
follow
you?
me on Twitter if you like. So I'm gonna try to post more, at least better quality content, I hope. And thanks for tuning in, everyone. It's considering it's a Wednesday, so very short notice on this one.
Yes, sometimes real life takes a hold, but this week we were able to sort of turn around and get something out for you. Anyway, if you want to follow me, you can follow me on Twitter. A bit more shit posting these days, but I do enjoy it. It's at a walrus in a suit. Sorry, at walrus in a suit, or just search a walrus. Of course, if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, I'd implore you to do so. Comment and like for the algorithm. Otherwise, we'll probably be back next week. And until then, have a great evening and a good weekend when that arrives. All right. Bye bye.